For decades, we've scrutinized every piece of evidence in the JonBenet Ramsey case. But there's one witness that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time: the house itself. Today, we're not just looking at the evidence, we're putting the crime scene on the stand.
So let's start with a really crucial question. What if the key to this whole thing isn't in a piece of testimony, but in the architecture, in the layout, the sounds, the very secrets of the Ramsey home? Let's dig into the story that the walls have been trying to tell us all along.
First up, the architecture of secrecy. We're going to look at this house not as a home, but as a machine that was almost perfectly designed for concealment. Its layout created what you could call zones of ignorance, making it totally possible for different realities to exist under one roof.
I mean, think about it. The sheer size of this place meant it wasn't just one space. It was a collection of totally isolated pockets. You could have the quiet, peaceful order of the upstairs bedrooms, while absolute chaos was unfolding in some forgotten corner downstairs. The house could literally hold two contradictory truths at the exact same time: peace and unimaginable violence.
And look, this isn't just some theory we're throwing out there. It's actually confirmed by Patsy Ramsey herself. In her testimony, she said that while she might hear her son Burke, whose room was closer, she was absolutely certain she wouldn't have heard JonBenet from the master bedroom. That right there establishes a baseline of just profound sound separation. Now, think about what that really means. A child's bathroom door opening, the heavy garage door going up or down, and most critically, any kind of activity in the basement. All of it could be completely swallowed by the house. Your natural alarm system, that ability to wake up when you hear a strange noise, it was basically disabled by drywall and distance. So in the end, the walls and floors weren't just separating rooms. They were creating physical, soundproof barriers to the truth. The house itself almost becomes an accomplice, its architecture ensuring that whatever happened in the dark could stay in the dark. Okay, so the house is great at hiding things, but let's look at how its role might have shifted from just passive concealment to actively helping stage the crime. We're going to deconstruct where that ransom note was found, not as a random choice, but as a deliberate piece of psychological stagecraft. This is absolutely critical: 95%. According to John Ramsey, the spiral staircase where Patsy found the note was the one the family used 95% of the time. This wasn't just a staircase, it was the main artery of the home's daily life. And right here is the difference between an intruder's guess and an insider's certainty. An outsider might leave a note somewhere obvious, right? Like the front door. But placing it on this specific staircase, that shows an intimate knowledge of the family's exact daily patterns. It ensures not just that the note gets found, but that it gets found by Patsy first thing in the morning. And here it is. This is the detail that turns knowledge into pure manipulation. Patsy's first thought wasn't alarm, it was routine. Because leaving notes on this staircase was a normal family habit. The person who did this didn't just know the family's path. They exploited a boring, everyday household behavior to deliver a message of absolute terror. You see, this wasn't just about leaving a note. It was a psychological attack. By putting it there, the author guaranteed Patsy would find it, which would trigger an immediate state of panic. And we all know what happens when adrenaline floods your system. Critical thinking just shuts down. The goal wasn't just for the note to be found. It was to create a storm of chaos and emotion that would cloud everyone's judgment from the very first second. So now let's move to the crime's endpoint, the basement wine cellar. And this wasn't just a random room. It was a space defined by its own geography of neglect. And believe me, that carries a ton of meaning on multiple levels. John Ramsey literally called it a nasty room. Patsy said you just didn't go in there. It was a forgotten corner, a place to dump stuff you only use once a year. Now, from a criminological perspective, that makes it the perfect spot for concealment, a place where something terrible could stay hidden for hours, even with police swarming the house. And when we look at the space through a few different lenses, it becomes even more significant. Forensically, yeah, it's the perfect hiding spot. Psychologically, it's almost a physical metaphor for compartmentalized trauma, a dark, separate place you can put something unbearable. And then, anthropologically, it kind of speaks to this weird vulnerability that comes with affluence. Having so much space that you can just forget about entire rooms, you create blind spots that simply don't exist in a smaller home. Which brings us to a really uncomfortable philosophical question. The house's layout suggests that, yeah, it was physically possible to not hear anything. But it forces us to ask about other kinds of knowing. I mean, how close can you be to a tragedy inside your own home before ignorance stops being a possibility and starts becoming a choice?
So this all boils down to one critical question of what you might call environmental mastery. Who could possibly know this house this well? An intruder would need to do extensive, incredibly high-risk surveillance to understand the acoustics, the forgotten rooms, the family's exact routines. Or the perpetrator was someone who already knew all of that simply by living there every single day.
So when we put all these pieces together, a pretty clear picture starts to form. And look, regardless of who was responsible, the Ramsey house was not a passive backdrop. It was an active participant, an environment that was perfectly suited for the crime that happened inside it. And that is the absolute core of it. The architecture of that house created a fundamental disconnect. It allowed sleep and violence, awareness and ignorance, routine and horror to exist at the same time, sealed off from each other, just feet apart. The house itself provided the means. It offered the soundproofing for isolation. It offered the forgotten rooms for concealment. And it offered the familiar, routine paths to be twisted into stages for trauma. In the end, it was more than just a crime scene. It was the perfect stage. And that leaves us with one last, kind of unsettling thought. If a house this big can create such a profound separation and allow a family to be so physically close to something, yet so unaware, well, it just makes you wonder. What blind spots, what forgotten corners, what unheard sounds exist in the spaces that we think we know best?